The black volcanic sand of Iwo Jima exploded in geysers around Corporal Tony Stein at 0902 hours on February the 19th, 1945, as Japanese machine gun fire from a concrete pillbox 60 yards ahead chewed up the beach where 28 other Marines lay pinned down and dying. Stein pressed the improvised trigger on the weapon in his hands, a Browning AN-M2 aircraft machine gun that he and 2 other Marines had ripped from a wrecked dive bomber and modified with an M1 Garand rifle stock and a bar bipod 3 weeks ago on a troop ship. The weapon roared, not the rhythmic chug-chug-chug of a standard Browning, but a shrieking industrial scream that sounded like metal tearing itself apart at 1,850 rounds per minute. The pillbox's firing slit vomited smoke and flame. 67 bullets had arrived in 3 seconds. The position went silent. "Jesus Christ!" Private Eddie Sellers screamed from the bomb crater behind Stein. "What the hell is that thing?" Stein didn't answer. He was already rotating toward the next pillbox, already squeezing the trigger again, already watching another Japanese position disappear under a stream of traces that looked like a solid bar of light in the morning sun. The weapon, they called it the Stinger, was supposed to be impossible. Aircraft guns couldn't work on the ground. They overheated without the 200 MPa cooling airflow. They were too heavy for infantry. The ammunition logistics were impossible. But the pillbox was dead anyway, and Stein's ammunition box was already empty after 22 seconds of combat. "Sellers, I'm going back for ammo." Stein kicked off his boots because they slowed him down in the loose volcanic sand, threw his helmet aside because weight mattered more than protection, and took off running toward the beach in his socks. Japanese mortar rounds bracketed his path. Machine gun fire stitched patterns across the sand 10 feet to his right. A shell fragment tore through his jacket, but missed skin. Stein covered 150 yards in 90 seconds, grabbed 6 ammunition boxes from a supply sergeant who stared at him like he'd lost his mind, and started running back. Halfway there, he found Private Jimmy Walsh bleeding in a crater with his leg torn open. "You're not dying here," Stein said. He hauled the 160-pound kid up in a fireman's carry, grabbed his ammunition bag with his free hand, and kept running while Japanese fire followed him the entire way. He dropped Walsh at the aid station at 0924 hours, 22 minutes after landing, grabbed his Stinger, and headed back toward the sound of gunfire, where 3 more pillboxes needed killing. The weapon's origin story went back 6 weeks to Camp Tarawa in Hawaii, where a Douglas Dauntless dive bomber had crashed on the runway with a damaged engine. Tony Stein was 23 years old, a Jewish kid from Dayton whose parents had fled Austria-Hungary before World War I, who dropped out of high school at 16 to work as a toolmaker at Patterson Field because he understood machines better than books. He joined the Marines in September 1942 to kill fascists, made it through para-marine training, survived Bougainville, where he'd shot 5 Japanese snipers in a single day, and ended up reassigned to the 28th Marines when the para-marines disbanded. The problem was firepower. The Browning automatic rifle fired 500 rounds per minute in 20-round magazines. Intelligence said Iwo Jima had 750 concrete pillboxes defended by 21,000 Japanese soldiers. The mathematics were brutal. Marines would die trying to suppress positions that the BR couldn't suppress fast enough. But that wrecked Dauntless had twin AN-M2 machine guns in its wings, aircraft guns that fired 1,250 rounds per minute, 3 times faster than a bar. Stein looked at those guns and saw the solution everyone else had missed. He found Sergeant Mel Grevich, an armorer who'd been modifying weapons since Guadalcanal, and Private John Little, a mechanic who understood aircraft systems. The three of them stripped the AN-M2 from the wing mount, carved out an M1 Garand stock to fit the gun's buffer tube, mounted Garand sights, attached a bar bipod, and fabricated a trigger assembly from sheet metal. The ammunition feed used 100-round cloth belts in detachable box magazines. The entire conversion took 3 weeks using salvaged parts and machine shop tools. The result looked like something built in a garage by amateurs because it was. But on the Camp Tarawa rifle range, it destroyed targets at 300 yards with such overwhelming volume of fire that the range safety officer stopped the test to check if Stein was somehow firing 2 weapons simultaneously. They built 6 Stingers total before shipping out. 5 went to G Company. The 6th went to Stein because everyone knew he was exactly the kind of crazy bastard who would use it effectively. The weapon had limitations. It overheated after 200 sustained rounds. It drank ammunition so fast that Stein needed to make constant trips back for resupply. It weighed 23 pounds before ammunition, but when Stein squeezed the trigger and that industrial scream tore across the volcanic sand, Japanese positions simply ceased to exist. By 1100 hours on D-Day, Stein had made 4 trips back to the beach. By 1300 hours, 6 trips. By 1530 hours, when Company A finally secured the first defensive line, Stein had made 8 complete runs, totaling more than 2 miles of sprinting under fire while carrying wounded Marines each time. He'd destroyed 20 confirmed pillboxes. Company A had taken the lightest casualties of any company in the first wave. That night, as Marines dug in and prepared for counterattacks, Captain Richard DeCamp found Stein cleaning the Stinger by firelight. "Corporal Stein," DeCamp said, "you're either the bravest man I've ever seen or the craziest. I haven't decided which." "I'm a toolmaker from Dayton, sir," Stein said. "I build things that solve problems." The next morning, February 20th, Company A received orders to advance on Mount Suribachi, 556 feet of volcanic rock honeycombed with tunnels and defended by 1,500 Japanese soldiers who'd spent months preparing their positions. DeCamp put Stein at the front of 3rd Platoon's advance. "Your job is to keep that weapon firing and keep us moving forward. Can you do that?" "Yes, sir," Stein said. The advance began at 0700 hours. The first Japanese machine gun opened fire at 0708 hours from a pillbox 200 yards ahead. Stein set up behind a destroyed Sherman tank, acquired his target through the Garand sights, and squeezed the trigger. 3 seconds, 67 rounds through an 8-inch firing slit. The position went silent. 3rd Platoon advanced 50 yards, while Stein suppressed 2 more positions. The pattern repeated throughout the morning. Japanese positions would open fire. Stein would stand up fully exposed because the Stinger needed stability to fire accurately. He'd unleash that shrieking roar of rapid fire. The position would go silent. 3rd Platoon would advance. When Stein ran low on ammunition, Private Sellers or Private Martinez would sprint forward with fresh boxes. At 0847 hours, a Japanese sniper put a 7.7mm round through the Stinger's barrel shroud. The impact tore the weapon from Stein's hands, broke his right thumb, and dislocated 2 fingers. Stein shook his hand once, popped the dislocated fingers back into place against his belt, picked up the Stinger with his left hand, determined the weapon still functioned, and resumed firing left-handed. The entire process took 15 seconds. "You okay, Corporal?" Sellers shouted. "Thumb's broken," Stein shouted back. "I'll worry about it later." By 10:23 hours, Stein had been wounded twice more. Shrapnel in his left leg from a grenade that destroyed his ammunition box, and burns on both hands from touching the superheated barrel car while reloading. Each time, he had wounds bandaged quickly and continued fighting. By 11:47 hours, 3rd Platoon reached Suribachi's base, 600 yards of heavily defended terrain covered in 4.5 hours with only 8 casualties. 1st Platoon, advancing along the western beach, had covered 500 yards with 22 casualties. 2nd Platoon, through the center, had covered 450 yards with 31 casualties. The difference was the Stinger and the toolmaker from Dayton who used it like he'd been born with it in his hands. That night, an armorer from Division Ordnance arrived with a replacement barrel and tools to repair the Stinger's damaged components. While he worked, Stein watched the rest of the 28th Marines surround Suribachi, cutting it off from reinforcement. The assault would begin tomorrow morning. Intelligence estimated casualties could reach 40% of the attacking force. "You think we'll take Suribachi tomorrow?" Private Sellers asked. "We'll take it," Stein said. "Might cost us 300 casualties, might cost us 500, but we'll take it. The Japanese don't have unlimited ammunition or reinforcements. We do. It's just mathematics." The assault began at 0800 hours on February 21st. Stein led Company A's advance up the mountain slopes, carrying the Stinger and suppressing cave positions one after another as Marines climbed behind him. The battle lasted 4 days. Japanese defenders fought from interconnected tunnels and refused to surrender even when their position became hopeless. Stein was wounded 3 more times: shrapnel in his shoulder, another leg wound, burns across his chest, but he refused evacuation and continued fighting. On February 23rd, Marines raised the American flag on Suribachi's summit at 10:20 hours. Tony Stein wasn't there to see it. He was still on the slopes with Company A, suppressing the last defenders who refused to surrender. The final resistance on Suribachi ended February 24th. Approximately 1,250 Japanese soldiers were dead. American casualties totaled 895 Marines killed or wounded. Company A, which had Corporal Stein providing suppressive fire, took the lightest casualties of any company: 47 wounded, 6 killed. Captain DeCamp submitted Stein for the Medal of Honor on February 24th. The citation detailed everything: the 8 trips on D-Day, the destruction of at least 20 pillboxes, the repeated exposure to enemy fire, the wounded Marines carried to safety, the continued fighting despite multiple wounds. But Tony Stein wouldn't live to receive it. On March 1st, 1945, 10 days after the flag raising, Corporal Stein was leading a 19-man patrol near Hill 362A in northern Iwo Jima. The Stinger had been damaged beyond repair in a previous engagement. Stein was carrying a standard M1 Garand rifle. At approximately 1340 hours, a Japanese sniper, hidden in a cave 150 yards away, put a 7.7mm round through Stein's neck. The bullet severed his carotid artery and spine simultaneously. He died instantly. He was 23 years old. The Medal of Honor was presented to his widow Rose on February 19, 1946, exactly 1 year after the landings. She accepted it with tears streaming down her face, clutching the blue ribbon and gold star that represented her husband's courage. The 6 Stingers saw action throughout the Iwo Jima campaign. Combined, they destroyed an estimated 140 pillboxes and cave positions, enabled advances across terrain that should have been impossible, and saved countless lives through overwhelming suppressive fire. After the War Department ordered all 6 destroyed. Non-standard weapons complicated logistics. The order was carried out in July 1945. No Stinger survived, but the memory survived. Veterans of the 28th Marines told stories about Tony Stein and his weapon for decades. They described that distinctive shrieking roar. They remembered him running in his socks, carrying wounded men. They recalled how he'd stand fully exposed to draw fire away from advancing Marines. The legacy wasn't just technical, though the Stinger influenced post-war machine gun development in ways that were never officially acknowledged. The real legacy was philosophical. Tony Stein proved that ordinary soldiers could identify tactical problems and create solutions faster than official research programs. He proved that the best weapons sometimes come from the people who have to use them. Corporal Tony Stein's body was reburied in Calvary Cemetery in Dayton, Ohio, in 1948. His grave is marked with a simple headstone listing his name, rank, and the Medal of Honor. The USS Stein, FF 1065, was commissioned in his honor in 1972. The Marine Corps dedicated a training building at Camp Pendleton in his memory in 1989. But perhaps the most fitting memorial exists in the countless stories told by veterans and historians. Stories about a toolmaker from Dayton who kicked off his boots to run faster, who stood fully exposed because that's what the mission required, who made 8 trips carrying wounded men while bullets searched for him, who used a homemade weapon to destroy 20 pillboxes in a single day. The stories capture something essential about heroism. It's not superhuman strength or fearlessness. It's the willingness to do what needs to be done, regardless of personal cost, because other people's lives depend on you. Tony Stein had that willingness. He saw Marines dying from positions they couldn't suppress, so he built a weapon that could suppress them. He saw wounded men who needed evacuation, so he carried them to safety, even when it meant running through enemy fire 8 times in succession. That's the legacy. The demonstration that ordinary people, toolmakers, mechanics, farm kids from Ohio, can achieve extraordinary things when they combine skill with courage and absolute determination to protect their brothers. Simple mathematics that changed history. A toolmaker's solution to a tactical problem. A Marine who understood that courage isn't the absence of fear, but the willingness to do what needs doing despite it. That's what Tony Stein taught us on Iwo Jima. That's what the Stinger represents. And that's why we remember. Mount Suribachi's volcanic slopes rose 556 feet above the black sand beaches at 0630 hours on February 20th, 1945, and Corporal Tony Stein could count at least 15 gun flashes winking from cave mouths scattered across the mountain like malevolent stars. Company A had orders to advance north and encircle Suribachi before the final assault. Intelligence estimated 1,500 Japanese soldiers dug into tunnels with interlocking fields of fire covering every approach. Captain Richard DeCamp gathered his platoon leaders for final orders. Corporal Stein, DeCamp said, "Your Stinger was the most effective weapon we had yesterday. You're leading 3rd Platoon's advance. Your job is to keep moving forward and keep that weapon firing. Battalion headquarters heard about yesterday. Division heard about it. Hell, General Rocky probably heard about it." "Yes, sir," Stein said. His feet were torn from running in socks yesterday, his shoulders bruised from recoil, but Marines didn't complain about minor injuries. "I'll need 3 ammunition bearers. The Stinger burns through ammo faster than I can carry. You'll have Sellers, Martinez, and KO. They stay within 50 yards. DeCamp pointed at the map. Eastern Approach has at least 15 confirmed pillboxes between here and Suribachi's base. Everyone opens fire the moment we move. Kill them faster than they kill us. 3rd Platoon moved out at 0700 hours in loose column, using destroyed vehicles for cover when possible. The first shots came at 708 hours. A Japanese machine gun from a pillbox 200 yards ahead. Stein set up the Stinger behind a destroyed Sherman's hull, acquired target through the Garand sights, and squeezed the trigger. 3 seconds, 67 rounds through an 8-inch firing slit. The position went silent. A second pillbox opened fire from 150 yards left. Stein rotated the Stinger, fired another 3-second burst, watched that position go silent. 3rd Platoon advanced 50 yards. When Stein's ammunition ran low, Private Martinez sprinted forward with fresh boxes. The advance continued. At 0847 hours, a Japanese sniper put a 7.7mm round through the Stinger's barrel shroud. The impact tore the weapon from Stein's hands, broke his right thumb, dislocated 2 fingers. Stein shook his hand once, popped the dislocated fingers back against his belt, picked up the Stinger left-handed, verified it still functioned, resumed firing. 15 seconds total. "You okay, Corporal?" Sellers shouted. "Thumb's broken. I'll worry about it later." Stein fired another burst at the sniper's cave mouth. Rocks exploded from the impact zone. The sniper stopped shooting. "Martinez! Fresh box!" Private Tommy Martinez sprinted forward through enemy fire and slapped a new ammunition box onto the Stinger. That's the last one in immediate supply. Keogh's gone back for more. Then we've got about 2 minutes of ammunition. Tell the platoon to push forward while I've got rounds. 3rd Platoon advanced another 100 yards before hitting a complex of 3 interconnected pillboxes, creating crossfire that pinned everyone behind a volcanic ridge. Marines couldn't advance without exposing themselves to fire from multiple directions. Standard tactics called for flanking maneuvers or artillery support. That would take time. Casualties would mount while they waited. Stein stood up fully exposed on the ridge and opened fire on the nearest pillbox. His muzzle flash made him the most visible target on the battlefield. Every Japanese soldier could see exactly where he was. That was the point. By drawing fire, he forced Japanese gunners to choose between shooting at him or shooting at advancing Marines. Bullets snapped past Stein's head close enough that he felt their supersonic crack. Mortar rounds impacted around him. A machine gun burst stitched the ground 6 inches from his feet, but Stein kept firing, methodically destroying the pillbox complex, one position at a time. First pillbox silent after 5 seconds, second after 8. Third took nearly 40 rounds before something inside detonated and smoke poured from the firing slit. The ammunition box ran empty. Stein dropped flat as Japanese fire intensified. His right hand was swelling badly now, the broken thumb throbbing. But Private Keogh was sprinting back from the beach, carrying 4 fresh boxes. Keogh dove behind the ridge, gasping for breath. 4 boxes. That's all they had. Next resupply wave isn't due for another hour. 400 rounds, 18 seconds sustained, or maybe 3 minutes combat use with disciplined bursts. "We make these count," Stein said. "Once I open fire, platoon advances. We've got 3 minutes of covering fire before I'm empty." Lieutenant Jake Morrison crawled up beside them. Morrison was 24, from Nebraska, commissioned 6 months ago. "You can't keep exposing yourself like that. Every Japanese gun is targeting you specifically. If I don't suppress those positions, the platoon gets pinned and we don't reach Suribachi by 1200 hours," Stein said. "Mission requires someone to take risks. I've got the best weapon for it." Morrison stared at him, then nodded. Permission granted, but for the record, you're the craziest son of a bitch I've ever commanded. He raised his voice. All squads, prepare to advance on Corporal Stein's covering fire. Stein stood up and resumed firing. The stinger had become hot enough that heat waves rose from the barrel. He could feel the weapon's heat through his gloves. But the gun kept firing, kept destroying Japanese positions faster than they could respond. 3rd Platoon advanced 50 yards, then 50 more, then 75, leapfrogging forward while Stein provided covering fire. At 10:23 hours, a Japanese grenade detonated close enough that shrapnel tore through the Stinger's ammunition box and caught Stein's left leg, opening a gash from knee to ankle. He dropped flat, grabbed a fresh box from KO, forced it into the damaged magazine well, kept firing. The pain could wait. Jesus Christ, Tony, you're hit. Fall back to the aid station. I'm fine. Tie it off. Stein fired another burst at a pillbox 120 yards ahead. How much ammo left? This is your last box, Kyo said quietly. 100 rounds, maybe 30 seconds sustained fire. Stein assessed the situation. 3rd Platoon was 250 yards from Suribachi's base, with 6 more defensive positions between current location and objective. Without the Stinger, advance would slow and casualties would mount. But if he used remaining ammunition on the most critical positions, he could create enough opening for the platoon to advance through speed and violence. Listen up, Stein shouted. I've got 1 box left. I'm clearing the next 3 positions, then I'm empty. When I open fire, entire platoon advances fast. Don't stop. Don't slow down. Just run. We take Suribachi's base through speed, not firepower. He stood up one more time. Broken thumb, bleeding leg, burned hands, bruised shoulders. But the Stinger still worked. He aimed at the nearest pillbox, 140 yards away, fired 3 seconds, position silent, rotated right, 165 yards, fired again, another position destroyed. 3rd pillbox farther away, at 190 yards, Stein emptied remaining ammunition into its firing slit and watched it go silent. The action locked open on empty. Stein grabbed the empty Stinger, slung it across his back despite the barrel burning through his jacket, and ran forward with his platoon. His injured leg screamed with every step. Blood squelched in his boot, but he kept running. 3rd Platoon reached Suribachi's base at 11:47 hours, 13 minutes ahead of schedule. They'd covered 600 yards of defended terrain in 4.5 hours, destroyed 27 Japanese positions, taken only 8 casualties. 1st Platoon, advancing along Western Beach, had covered 500 yards with the 22 casualties. 2nd Platoon, through center, had covered 450 yards with 31 casualties. The difference was the Stinger. Captain DeCamp found Stein at 1200 hours while a corpsman stitched his leg wound. 14 stitches. The corpsman insisted Stein needed evacuation to a hospital ship. DeCamp overruled him. Corporal Stein stays with Company A until we secure Suribachi. After that, medical treatment. But right now, we need him and that weapon. Sir, the weapon's empty, Stein said, pointing at the Stinger. The barrel was discolored from heat stress, stock charred and cracked, ammunition feed mechanism damaged from shrapnel. Even with more ammo, I'm not sure it'll fire. Magazine well is warped. Then you'll have tools and time, DeCamp said. Battalion's sending an armorer with field repair kit. He'll be here within the hour. You rest, get treated, prepare for tomorrow's assault. We're taking Suribachi tomorrow morning. I want you and that Stinger leading the charge. Sergeant Bill Crawford from Division Ordnance arrived at 13:15 hours with toolbox and replacement barrel. He examined the Stinger with a machinist's critical eye and whistled. Impressive field modification. Who built this? Sergeant Grevich, Private Little, and me. Used parts from a wrecked Dauntless. Crawford began disassembling the weapon. Magazine well can be hammered back into shape. Barrel needs replacing. This one's shot out. Stock needs complete replacement. Give me 2 hours. While Crawford worked, the 28th Marines continued arriving at Suribachi's base. Company B from west, Company C from north. By 1600 hours, the entire regiment had surrounded the mountain, cutting it off from reinforcement. But 1,300 Japanese soldiers remained dug into tunnels and caves, honeycombing the interior. The assault plan was suicidal by rational standards. Marines would advance up slopes under fire from positions they couldn't see until muzzle flashes gave them away. They'd use flamethrowers, demolitions, and overwhelming firepower to destroy each position while climbing 556 feet of volcanic rock. Intelligence estimated casualties could reach 40% of attacking force. Crawford finished repairs at 15:45 hours. The weapon looked almost new, with fresh barrel and replacement stock. She'll handle another 5,000 rounds if you fire in bursts and let the barrel cool. But this barrel isn't air-cooled. Fire more than 200 rounds sustained. She'll overheat and potentially warp. Understood, Stein said, working the action, checking sights, verifying everything functioned smoothly. Good work, Sergeant. That night at So 3-4-5 hours, Stein sat in a shell crater with Sellers, drinking coffee that tasted like mud. You think we'll take Suribachi tomorrow? Sellers asked. We'll take it. Might cost us 300 casualties, might cost 500, but we'll take it. Japanese don't have unlimited ammunition. We do. Just mathematics. And you're going up that mountain carrying the Stinger. That's the plan. Stinger's the best weapon for suppressing cave positions. Flamethrowers work when you get close, but you need covering fire to get flamethrower operators into position. That's my job. The assault began at 0800 hours on February 21st. 3 companies, A, B, and C, from 28th Regiment, climbed Suribachi's slopes from 3 directions simultaneously. Corporal Tony Stein led Company A's advance, carrying the Stinger and 3 ammunition boxes. Broken thumb splintered, leg bandaged, burns wrapped in gauze. He hurt everywhere. The information was noted and ignored. 1st Japanese position opened fire at 0812 hours from cave mouth 80 feet up the mountainside. Stein set up the Stinger, braced against volcanic boulder, returned fire. 4-second burst. Position silent. Company A, advance 30 feet. Next position opened fire. Stein suppressed it. Advance continued. The battle for Suribachi lasted 4 days. February 21st through 23rd, Marines advanced foot by foot up slopes, destroying positions with flamethrowers, demolitions, grenades, and devastating suppressive fire from Stein's Stinger. The weapon became legendary. When Japanese positions opened fire, someone would shout, "Get Stein!" and the corporal with the homemade machine gun would appear, set up in exposed positions, unleash that inhuman roar. February 22nd, Stein wounded again when knee mortar detonated 10 feet away, embedding shrapnel in right shoulder and chest. Wounds bandaged, refused evacuation, continued fighting. February 23rd, suppressed 3 cave positions simultaneously by traversing fire between them so rapidly Japanese couldn't determine which was being engaged. Company A advanced 150 feet in 30 minutes, fastest advance of entire Suribachi battle. At 10:20 hours, February 23rd, patrol from Company E reached summit and raise small American flag. At 1400 hours, larger flag raised in its place, photographed by Joe Rosenthal in what would become World War II's most famous image. Tony Stein wasn't there to see it. He was still on slopes with Company A, suppressing defenders who refused to surrender. Final resistance ended February 24th. Approximately 250 Japanese soldiers dead. American casualties, 895 Marines killed or wounded. Company A, with Stein providing suppressive fire, took lightest casualties, 47 wounded, 6 killed. Captain DeCamp submitted Stein for Medal of Honor on February 24th. The citation detailed D-Day's 8 trips, destruction of 20-plus pillboxes, repeated exposure to fire, wounded Marines carried to safety, continued fighting despite multiple wounds. Division Headquarters approved February 26th. Corps Headquarters approved February 28th. But Tony Stein wouldn't live to receive it. March the 1st, 1945, 10 days after flag raising, Corporal Stein led 19-man patrol near Hill 362A in northern Iwo Jima. The Stinger had been destroyed in previous engagement. Stein carried standard M1 Garand. At approximately 1340 hours, Japanese sniper hidden in cave 150 yards away put 7.7mm round through Stein's neck. Bullets severed carotid artery and spine simultaneously. Death was instantaneous. He was 23 years old. The patrol recovered his body under fire and brought him back to Company A. Private Sellers helped carry the body. "He was the bravest man I ever knew," Sellers told the first sergeant. "Craziest too, but mainly brave. He saved all of us over and over." Medal of Honor presented to Widow Rose on February 19th, 1946, exactly 1 year after landings. Ceremony in Ohio Governor's Office. Rose accepted with tears streaming, clutching blue ribbon and gold star. The citation read in part, "The first man of his unit to be on station after hitting the beach in the initial assault, Corporal Stein, armed with a personally improvised aircraft-type weapon, provided rapid covering fire as the remainder of his platoon attempted to move into position. Making frequent trips to the beach, he exposed himself to hostile fire each time to replenish ammunition and return wounded Marines to safety. Through his great personal valor and unyielding devotion to duty, Corporal Stein contributed materially to the success of his battalion." What the citation didn't mention, the sound of Stinger roaring across volcanic sand, the sight of Stein standing fully exposed while bullets snapped around him, the way he'd strip off boots and helmet to run faster, carrying wounded men, his broken thumb, leg wound, how he'd rebuilt the weapon when damaged. It didn't capture that a toolmaker from Dayton had looked at aircraft machine gun and seen possibility where others saw scrap. The 5 other Stingers, Grevich and Little built, saw action throughout Iwo Jima. All 5 used by G Company, 28th Marines. Combined, 6 Stingers destroyed estimated 140 pillboxes and cave positions during 36-day battle. They enabled advances across impassable terrain, saved countless lives through overwhelming suppressive fire, demonstrated battlefield innovation could match official procurement. After War Department ordered all 6 destroyed. Non-standard weapons complicated logistics. Destruction order carried out July 1945. All 6 cut up with torches, parts scattered. No Stinger survived, but memory survived. Veterans of 28th Marines told stories about Tony Stein and his Stinger for decades. They described distinctive shrieking roar. They remembered him running in socks carrying wounded men. They recalled how he'd stand fully exposed to draw fire. Sergeant Mel Grevich, who designed Stinger's conversion, survived Iwo Jima and returned to Pennsylvania. Worked as machinist until retirement 1972. In 1968 interview, We built those weapons because Marines were dying and we had skills to help. Tony was supposed to help us test it. Instead, he turned it into legend. He didn't care about credit, just wanted to save lives. Private John Little, other primary designer, killed Iwo Jima February 27th by artillery fire, age 22. His contribution largely forgotten until 1990s, military historians discovered his name in Grevich's unpublished memoirs. Private Sellers survived, returned to Philadelphia, worked as machinist, raised 4 children, died 1994, age 68. His children recalled father rarely spoke about war, but when he did, always talked about Marine named Tony Stein, who'd carried him from danger twice. Dad kept Stein's photograph on his workbench his entire life, said it reminded him what real courage looked like. Technical lessons from Stinger influenced post-war weapons development in ways never officially acknowledged but clearly present. M60 machine gun, introduced 1957, incorporated elements, lighter weight than M1919, higher rate of fire, greater portability. M249 squad, automatic weapon, fielded 1984, pushed concept further. Both embodied principle. Stein and Stinger demonstrated overwhelming volume from man-portable weapon, suppressed positions more effectively than traditional machine guns. But real legacy wasn't technical, it was philosophical. Stinger proved ordinary soldiers, toolmakers, machinists, mechanics, could identify tactical problems and create solutions faster than official R&D. Military establishment learned from Iwo Jima that field innovation should be encouraged. By Vietnam War, Army established formal programs for documenting soldier-designed modifications. By Gulf War, field expedient modifications actively solicited from troops. Cultural change took decades, but started with Marines like Tony Stein, who'd looked at official equipment and said, "I can build better." Modern military forces worldwide now encourage battlefield innovation. U.S. Army's Rapid Equipping Force, established 2002, exists specifically to identify soldier-created solutions and rapidly field them. Special Operations maintain dedicated workshops where soldiers modify equipment for mission-specific requirements. Principle same as Stein demonstrated 1945. People closest to problem often have best solutions. Corporal Tony Stein's body, initially buried 5th Division Cemetery on Iwo Jima, alongside thousands who died taking the island. 1948, remains returned to U.S. and reburied Calvary Cemetery, Dayton, Ohio. Grave marked with simple headstone, listing name, rank, unit, Medal of Honor. Veterans Day, each year, local organizations place flowers and tell new generations about toolmaker who'd built weapon from spare parts and used it to save lives. USS Stein, FF 1065, Knox-class frigate, commissioned 1972 in his honor. Served 20 years before decommissioning 1992. During service, crew maintained tradition. Every Marine coming aboard would be told story of Tony Stein and Stinger. Ship's armory contained replica Stinger built by Navy machinists using Grevich's preserved plans. Marine Corps dedicated moving target simulator building at Camp Pendleton, 1989, in Stein's memory. Building trains Marines in engaging moving targets, particularly useful for machine gunners. Dedication plaque reads, Corporal Tony Stein, Medal of Honor, Iwo Jima, 1945. He showed us best weapons come from Marines who use them. 2004, full-scale Stinger replica built by Canadian firearms researcher Paul Scholl with Canadian Historical Arms Museum. Project took 3 months using period-correct parts. Scholl test-fired replica on camera for The Weapon Hunter, demonstrating incredible rate of fire by shredding simulated sandbag fortifications in seconds. replica remains in museum collection, but most fitting memorial exists not in museums or ships or buildings, but in countless stories told by veterans and historians about Iwo Jima. Stories about toolmaker from Dayton who kicked off boots to run faster, who stood fully exposed because mission required it, who made 8 trips carrying wounded while bullets searched for him, who used homemade weapon to destroy 20 pillboxes in single day. Stories capture something essential about heroism, not superhuman strength or fearlessness. It's willingness to do what needs doing regardless of personal cost, because other people's lives depend on you. Tony Stein had that willingness. He saw Marines dying from positions they couldn't suppress, so he built weapon that could. He saw wounded men needing evacuation, so he carried them even when it meant running through fire 8 times in succession. He saw tactical problems needing solving, and he solved them with mechanical genius and absolute courage. That's the legacy. Not Medal of Honor, though that matters. Not ships and buildings named in his honor, though appropriate. Not technical innovations influencing weapons development for decades. The legacy is the example. Demonstration that ordinary people, toolmakers, mechanics, farm kids from Ohio, can achieve extraordinary things, combining skill with courage and determination to protect their brothers. On 80th anniversary of Iwo Jima invasion in 2025, new memorial unveiled at National Museum Marine Corps in Virginia. Centerpiece, full-scale Stinger replica positioned as if being fired by invisible Marine toward unseen enemy. Plaque reads, "The Stinger, designed by Sergeant Mel Grevich and Private John Little, made famous by Corporal Tony Stein, Medal of Honor." This weapon represents ingenuity, courage, and determination, defining Marines who fought at Iwo Jima, built from spare parts by ordinary men, used to save extraordinary lives. 1945. Below, in smaller letters, sometimes best weapons come from people who have to use them. That story of Tony Stein and Stinger, toolmaker from Dayton, who looked at aircraft machine gun and saw possibility, who built weapon from salvaged parts because Marines were dying and he had skills to help, who used that weapon with devastating effectiveness, becoming legend, who died age 23 on Volcanic Island, 8,000 miles from home, having saved more lives than anyone could count. Mathematics straightforward. 6 Stingers destroyed estimated 140 positions. Those positions would have killed estimated 1,200 Marines by conventional assault. Tony Stein personally destroyed at least 20 positions D-Day, another 15 during Suribachi assault, carried 8 wounded to safety under fire, fought 10 days with broken thumb, torn leg, embedded shrapnel, refusing evacuation. Simple mathematics that changed history. Toolmaker's solution to tactical problem. Marine who understood courage isn't absence of fear, but willingness to do what needs doing despite it. That's what Tony Stein taught us on Iwo Jima. That's what Stinger represents. That's why we remember